Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Arizona Coyotes franchise mode here in NHL 22. So in last episode we had free agency, and we also started up the season simulation briefly, and as you can see so far, we are 3-4-1, so not off to a bad start. Hopefully some of the guys that we signed don't over simulate, but if they do, we could eventually, I guess, trade them away. But right now, Caleb Jones, who we signed in the offseason, has been pretty good for the team in the first 8 games. As you can see, he's got 5 points, which is a little bit outrageous. I hope he kind of slows down, because or else him, like Barabanov, Godet, those type of guys that we brought in could be probably flipped away. But hopefully this team doesn't over-simulate and make it into the playoffs, because right now Samuel Montembeault has been a really good goaltender, and I don't want to make the playoffs, obviously, because this team really needs to have a high up pick in this year's draft, because this year's draft has Connor Bedard and Matvei Michkov, so we should be able to get some good prospects in if we do finish pretty high up in the draft. I believe we have just our normal picks in this year's draft. Yeah, we just have our normal picks, and we have 3 third-round picks, though, and no 7th-rounders, so we definitely want to maybe add some first-rounders in terms of the trade deadline this year if we can, or some prospects, that type of thing. So yeah. But anyways, before we start simulating up to like a day before the trade deadline, I do have a few comments to go over. So the first one is from Felipe557. He says, I don't know if you signed anyone in the offseason to get over the cap floor. Maybe you did, but didn't show it. Now, I showed all the signings that I made, so we might actually be still below the cap floor, which is not necessarily a good thing, because then we might run into cap problems. No, we're just above the cap floor, it looks like, which means we might run into still some problems. So if we bring in somebody like eventually with like $1 million cap hit, that might help us out a little bit. But yeah, we are just barely over the cap floor. Let me just take a look actually at the free agents just to make sure we are above the cap floor fully. There is guys that want a decent amount of money, but most of them are RFAs that are still holding out. Like we could sign people if we want to, but I don't think it's necessarily really for this team. Like eventually we could bring in somebody, but right now I don't think we don't need to. We could always bring in like Zach Whitecloud, but I believe, no, he is a UFA. That wouldn't be a bad option to bring in as like a depth defenseman, but I don't want to make this team too good, so I won't really sign anybody else. Ilya Mikheyev is also there, which is kind of interesting, but yeah, I think the reason we're just above the cap floor is because they do usually adjust your cap, like your players' cap hits once you're below the cap hit, just to make your guys cap compliant, because we offered Caleb Jones way less than this, I think, but we're paying him 2.795 for 3 years, so that's kind of interesting. The next comment is from Hawksfan88. He says, don't think I'd make any moves right now since it's early in the season. Moving a guy like Schmaltz might be a good idea since he's a little older and has good trade value. So yeah, we're not going to be making probably any trades here early on in the season, but obviously in next episode when we have the deadline, we definitely will be. But yeah, Nick Schmaltz could be an interesting guy we could move away. Like if I was to go to find trade right now and see what we could get for somebody like Nick Schmaltz, it would probably be something decent. Like we could get probably a good pick back or prospect because he's got some value. Like we could, I guess we'd have to adjust our trading block. We'll do that actually probably just after this last comment, which is from Senator Sal. He says, I'd go with somebody like McTavish or Jarvis. If not, Kaljovic would be decent. So I don't think going after Mason McTavish is realistic, because Mason McTavish technically shouldn't have been on the block, because the Ducks, I don't know how they made the playoffs in year 1. But yeah, he shouldn't have been on the block. While Jarvis and Kaljovic, those type of guys could be probably guys we could target at some point, because Carolina and Tampa Bay are both contenders, so it makes sense for them to move out from their prospects. While Anaheim, I don't think is a contender, so it doesn't really make sense for them to move out McTavish. So, but yeah, anyways, those were the comments I got in the last episode, so keep them coming, guys, for next episode. But let me just take a look and edit our trading block a little bit, just because I don't know if it's set up properly. Yeah, so it has our wants being a little bit too high in terms of age, so I will adjust this a little bit so we can maybe start getting actually some offers. Any goaltender that is 17 to 27 usually is what I make it, and then 28-year-olds plus is what usually goes on the block. So let's go any forward, knock this down a little bit, just to see if we could get some offers for Nick Schmaltz, even though we're not going to be making a trade with Nick Schmaltz in this episode, but we could potentially do one at the deadline. But then again, we'd have to probably take back some sort of cap hit, or else we might be below the cap. Well, we probably would be, because I believe Nick Schmaltz is one of our highest paid players, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, okay, that's good. Now let's take a look and see if we can get an offer for Nick Schmaltz. If not, it doesn't really matter, and we could just simulate close to the deadline, see how this team does. Hopefully we don't make the playoffs, though, this year, because I don't know if we signed too good of players or what, but we're off to a better start than I actually kind of imagined. And now we're getting some offers. No, we're not. Wow, that took a while to load, but no offers still for Nick Schmaltz, which is interesting. But he will be somebody that we shop at the trade deadline. Yeah, he's making $6 million, which is our highest paid player, which means we would have to probably take back somebody that's a current roster player in order to actually still be cap compliant, I think, which is kind of interesting if we are to trade him away at the deadline. So that's just a little heads up on that front. But yeah, let's get simulating. So we will go to December the 1st, see how we do in this month of December. Or is this November? No, this is November. Yeah, we're November for... Yeah, I said December the 1st. We're going to sim too, so makes sense. Travis Boyd's been injured. Let's go replace player. Boro on waivers. No, thank you. But yeah, this team might be over-simulating here early on. And we already got a trade offer, a 3rd to 4th in Alex Barabanov for a low top 4 defensive prospect, a 3rd round pick, and Coburn, who's a low bottom 6. That's not a terrible offer, to be honest, but basically it's swapping our 3rd for their 3rd in more recent drafts. And then we also give up a 4th rounder, which I don't really like, but we do get a good defensive prospect. We give up Barabanov and get some random bottom 6 prospect. I don't think this is worth it, really. Even though Malikov is a 3rd rounder, he might not be a bad player, Malikov, at some point, but I don't think he's really worth that much. And I don't really want to give up picks, even though this team is really over-simulating at the moment, which is kind of annoying, because I don't want to over-simulate in this. So Travis Boyd, where was he playing again? Oh yeah, probably where Ladd is, because Ladd isn't a face-off guy. So that is good. But yeah, we're over-simulating here early on. And wow, Boyd just fractured his ankle. Jeez. Boyd is a fragile player, which is not great, because he is one of those players that teams were asking me about in the offseason. Farinacci's been injured in the minors. That's not good either, because that's one of our better forward prospects. And now he's back. That's good. So we'll take out Cameron Karate. He's playing forward for some reason. And now we're losing games, which is good. Definitely don't want to make the playoffs in year 2. We're now 10-10-2 after the month of November, which is not too bad. And yeah, Clayton Keller's doing pretty good still, which is good, because I would like to keep him around for as long as we can, potentially. But he does have good value, I think. So, yeah, the 18 points so far, that's pretty good. Let me just take a look quickly through our lineup in terms of points. Barabanov is not doing that great at all on that first line. 7 points now. Slowing down a bit, but only 5 goals, which is good. Galchenyuk, Joe Thornton's doing decent, so his value should maybe be decent at the deadline. 11 points is not too bad. Yeah, we're not scoring enough, which is good, because we don't want to. Barrett Hayton is doing really well, though. I should almost move him up to the 2nd line, but he's still listed as a 3rd line scoring forward, so I will wait for now on that. Gaudet's been playing pretty good too, so Gaudet's value might go up at the deadline a little bit. And then on 4th line, Larson, Ladd's been quiet, and Gauthier's got 4 points. As for our defense so far, not too bad from our first pairing. Caleb Jones only has 9 points now, so he started off the season really hot, but he's really slowed down. But minus 12 in 22 games. Our defense is not doing too well at all either. Soderstrom, though, has 12 points in 22 games, which is pretty good. Hopefully he could continue to get some good development. He's up to an 81 now. Bodane's got 3 points and is a +2. That's actually pretty impressive from that top 6 pairing. And then Yoki Harshu is a -5. Then again, Bodane doesn't average that much ice time. He only averages 12 minutes a game, so maybe that's the reason why he's still plus. Goalies so far, Montembeault has really struggled since the beginning of the season, which is good, and Corner is struggling too. That's good, because we do not want to make the playoffs. We want to tank and maybe get one of the top prospects, Maybe get a good EA generating guy, who knows. But I really want to have a good pick in this year's draft, because obviously that's crucial for our rebuild, because we don't want to be a competitive team early on with this Arizona Coyotes franchise. At least I don't think. But yeah, we're still staying right around 500, which is kind of annoying. I don't know how, because based on our point totals and our goaltending, we haven't been a good team, but we're still winning enough games to be above 500 now. Come on, boys, stop getting points. Like, we just had a lot of extra frame losses that month, so we're still getting points. We're 16, 13, and 6. Like, I don't know why this team is doing that well. We're 2 points out of a playoff spot at the moment, but hopefully if we just barely miss, hopefully that gives us a random lottery chance that gets us top, because I know I have seen teams that finish, like, just out of a playoff spot, and then they end up getting the first overall pick, so who knows, maybe that'll be the case. But right now, Clayton Keller's been doing really good, almost point per game on a team that doesn't look that good, so, let me just see if the draft class is getting scouted out properly. Yep, they are. Okay, good, I think. Mitchkov should be getting scouted anyways, but I know he's a franchise player because I made him. And then Bedard's up there. Zetterberg's looking pretty solid. And there's also, like, Pietrangelo. Yeah, this might be a really good draft. There looks like there'll be a decent amount of medium elite players up to, like, number 7. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting draft for sure. We're going to definitely get some good prospects in. Any good steals to pin for now? Maybe this Clinton Richmond guy. Yeah, this guy might be a good goaltending prospect. We could pin him. And then who else is supposed to go outside of the first round? Moses. And he's probably just like a top 6 or a top 9. Devereaux doesn't look like a good steal. Any low elites so far? This guy has a scout recommended. And he doesn't look great. It might not be a good draft later on in the draft, but early on it should be solid. Based on how I'm seeing it, at least. Angelo Sanchez, what a name. Sounds more like a soccer player. Interesting. Let's continue to simulate, because we got a couple more months to simulate before we're at the deadline. And yeah, we'll simulate to a day before the deadline. That way we could check the trade deadline. Like, well, not the trade deadline, the trading block. And then you guys could suggest me some trades for next episode. But hopefully this team falls apart as we get closer to the deadline. Because right now we're still kind of over-simulating. Because, like, when we have, like, literally, like, 82s playing on our second line, they should be technically third-liners. Well, this team shouldn't even be simulating as well. Like, we're running Barabanov on the top line. Okay, this is a first trade that's kind of intriguing, but I don't really know if I want Samukharov. Like, we're giving up picks in this trade, which I don't like at all either. Like, I would be okay with giving up any current roster player, but we'd give up a 3rd-round pick. We'd give up Labushkin, who's currently playing as a depth defenseman for us, in a 7th-round pick, and we get Dmitry Samukharov, who's, I believe, a pretty solid defensive prospect. Now, I'm not going to make this trade in this episode, but it could be something we do. He's a 77 at 23, and he does have maybe some X factors, but I don't think he does. I don't know. But him being 23 years old already kind of scares me. I don't really know if it's worth it, but him being 77 is pretty solid. But yeah, I don't really know if that trade really makes sense for us to give up, like I said, the picks and stuff, so I'm not going to do that. But if you guys think it's a good trade to make, that could be something we do. We're also getting offered 2 fourths and Bushkin to Edmonton for Tullio and Warner, who's a low top 6 and a low AHL top 2 defenseman. Don't really like that trade either. But it looks like teams are interested in Labushkin, which is something I'm not opposed to trading away. 5th and Labushkin for a 5th and some low top 9. So we're getting thrown off some offers. Think about those ones for me, guys, and maybe we'll make some of those at the deadline. Joe Thornton's been injured, which is good, kind of, because maybe that'll make our team a little bit worse, because we're still kind of over-simulating, and it's kind of annoying. Because, like, when you try to make a bad team, somehow they still end up simulating decent. Oh, that line has a minus now. It didn't have a minus in the beginning of the season. It's kind of weird. I'll move Barabanov down and put Fisher on the top line then. Labushkin in a 3rd for a 3rd, a 4th, and Telquist. I don't really want to give up picks, though, Because our picks, I think, are going to be higher up than other teams' picks. Okay, there's a good losing streak here at the end of the month, but then we win against Winnipeg, of course. Joe Thornton's injured again, man. This old man keeps getting injured. We're definitely going to have to trade him at the deadline, though. A third, a fifth Lyubushkin for a second-round pick and a low top 9. That's a very intriguing one. A second-round pick, it's probably a late second-rounder, though, because Colorado obviously being a good team. But that second-round pick, but we do give up a third and a fifth, so we're kind of just moving up a little bit in the draft. And it's a year earlier than our picks. And we get a low top 9, which I don't know if it's a real player or not. We're 24, 21, and 6. That's still way too good. We are outside of the playoff spot, I think, still, which is good, though. Yeah, we're out of the playoff spot by 3 points. But we're still really over-simulating. I don't know if it's because of our top line. Yeah, it might be because Keller's got 50 points in 51 games, which is kind of crazy. I might not simulate much more than this because we're right at almost at the deadline, right? The deadline is in March this year. I might sim to March 1st, so it's still a couple days before the deadline. But this team is kind of simulating too good right now still. Like, let's take a look at our player stats again quickly through our lineup, just to see if any lines have been over-simulating. That line now has a +1. That's weird. No, maybe it's because Boyd was injured. I don't know, Joe Thornton must have got re-injured, right? Yeah, he did. Let's see what we got here. So, yeah, the top line has been really good. Obviously, Christian Fischer was on the second line mostly, but now he's playing top line minutes. Galchenyuk's playing really good, so I think this might be a good year to trade away Galchenyuk if we want to. Yeah, I think for sure Galchenyuk could get dealt at the deadline because he's playing pretty good. Andrew Ladd's still pretty quiet. Barabanov's been playing pretty solid still, 16 points, which is not bad from a 79 overall. So we could always trade him away. Lawson Krause has been not great. Barrett Hayton's been fantastic still, but he's a -20. Gaudette's been pretty good, 27 points, so he could also be flipped probably. Larson's been solid. Boyd's been pretty solid. And Julian Gauthier has actually been pretty good on that fourth line. So yeah, our top line has definitely been carrying our offense for the most part. And then defensively, Chikrin's been really good. Strawman's been pretty solid. And then the Jones and Soderstrom pairing's been pretty solid in terms of offense, but a little bit bad defensively, especially for Caleb Jones, which makes sense because his brother's pretty terrible defensively. And then Yoki Haru and Bodine they're both not playing that well. They're not putting up a lot of points. Yoki Haru is a -16 though. So we shouldn't even be above 500 with all these minus players on our team. And then goaltending-wise, currently, Montembeault has not been that great, but he does have over a 900 save percentage, and Coroner's not been that good. And then Joe Thornton, when he's been in the lineup, has been really good, so definitely Joe Thornton's a trade asset. And yeah, Lyubushkin will be probably as well, or we keep him around as a depth defenseman, I don't know. But that's that. Do we want to simulate up to March 1st? Yeah, let's simulate up to March 1st, so like a little bit before the deadline, but hopefully this team kind of falls apart, because we are still, we're almost near the end of the season already. Like, the trade deadline is pretty late into the season this year, so let's just go to March the 1st, and fall apart, please, boys. Joe Thornton is back, but we do not want to make the playoffs here. Because if we end up making the playoffs, we're going to end up missing out on 2 really generational players. And, okay, there's a couple losses. 3 straight losses. I like that. Like, we're just going to barely miss the playoffs, I think, which is good. There's an 8-0 loss. I like that. Caden Korczak and Mason Primo for 3rd to 4th in Lyubushkin. That's not a bad offer either. I don't know how Korczak and Primo pan out in franchise mode, but 2 more solid prospects, but we do give up a 3rd and a 4th to get it, which I don't know if I really like. Okay, so now we're 26, 29, and 7, so we just had a terrible month, which is really good, because that will affect the standings drastically. Yep, we are 8 points back of a playoff spot, which is the Golden Knights currently. So that is good news, very good news for this team, because now it looks like we're more than likely going to miss the playoffs, because we only have 20 games left this year. And yeah, we're a couple days before the deadline, so let's take a look at our player stats again for the season so far, so we can see who we could potentially trade away. And then we'll take a look at the trading block and all that stuff. We'll also take a look at how our prospects have been doing so far, because I'm kind of curious on that. And I will show you guys the draft class again, just in case it kind of sways you on what we could be trading away and what for in terms of picks and stuff. So in terms of our centers so far, Nick Schmaltz has been pretty good. Same with Galchenyuk. Like I said, Galchenyuk's value might actually go up because he's been pretty solid. Joe Thornton's been pretty good. He could probably get dealt, but we're going to have to probably take back some salary, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. Barrett Hayden and Adam Gaudette have also been pretty solid. Travis Boyd and Larson have been pretty good. I wouldn't be opposed to keeping somebody like Gaudette around still, because he's still kind of young. But Thornton and Galchenyuk, I think, are definitely trade assets. Keller, 56 points. Krause, 16 points. Ladd, 7 points. Not too bad. Like I also said, Nick Schmaltz is definitely could be trade bait as well. But we could keep him around if we want to as well, because he's got 49 points, which is pretty good. Baron Banov could also be trade value because he's got 15 goals this year. He could definitely add some like goal scoring to a playoff team. Christian Fischer and Julian Gauthier could definitely stay around still. And then defensively, Chychrun and Soderstrom have both been pretty good offensively. Caleb Jones has been pretty good. I don't know if anybody's going to be super interested in him, but I wouldn't mind keeping Caleb Jones around for now. Strawman's somebody we could deal with because of his age to like a contending team. Nick Beaudin and Henry Okaharji are going to stay here. So I think Strawman's the only asset really on the block for defense. And in goaltending-wise, I don't really think any of these guys would be on the block because they're both kind of young still, but that's their goalie stats anyways. Interesting. Okay, let's take a look at... I just want to see what our team's been doing well at so far, even though it doesn't really matter about that. I'm just kind of curious on like the goals for and all that. So goals for per game right now, we are one of the worst. That's good to see that. Goals against right now, we're one of the worst as well. Power play percentage. Looks like our power play is actually not terrible. Yeah, we have an okay power play. And our penalty kill is actually pretty solid as well. Did I see that right? Yeah, our penalty kill is actually pretty solid as well. So our special teams have been good despite our team being pretty bad. And we're 1-8-1 in our last 10, which is pretty nice considering we want to tank for a good pick, right? Let's take a look at that draft class again quickly. We'll take a look at the trading block, like I said, and then we'll take a look at our unsigned prospects and see if there's any good development going on over there or anybody's putting up some good numbers in their respective leagues. But yeah, I think Matvei Michkov might end up going before Bedard, which is kind of weird because they're both like the exact same overall and franchise potential, so that's kind of interesting. But yeah, Michkov or Bedard would be really nice to get, but we could always get another good elite player if we fall within the top 6. But there also is some other top 6 forwards that are pretty solid so far that we could see, which is interesting. Ross Reed, what a name. Let's see if there's any low elites. Let's see. Ortmeyer. This guy actually might be not that bad. Yeah, that guy might be a decent pick, so we're going to definitely pin that dude. But he is only 2 bars scouted. This guy might be okay too. I don't know. We'll just pin him. Cade Jones. Let me just take a look at goalie prospects as well. Yeah, Clinton Richmond might be decent, or he might end up just being a backup goalie. Who knows? Johan Soderstrom or Schustrom, I should say. What the heck am I saying? Kolnick, probably a backup or a starter. There's some decent goalies in this year's draft if we want to add a goalie prospect. Okay, let's take a look quickly at how the trading block is situated, just to see what's out there. And then I'll take a look at our prospects. So there is some prospects still in Anaheim. So they have Benoit Olivier Gruel, they have Perreault, Ikonen. McTavish is still on the block, but I don't think it's realistic still to trade for Mason McTavish. And to Schergel. Fabian Lascelles still on the block, but a lot of these guys are going to cost probably a decent amount because their values are pretty high. But hopefully some of our players that we have on our team that we signed in the offseason have good value. Sean Monahan on the block. Not Monahan, but am I saying? Monahan on the block. That's a pretty realistic thing, but we don't really need any veterans. But there is good prospects like Dominic Bach, Stelio Mateos, Ryan Suzuki, Ponomarev, Seth Jarvis is still there. Yeah, there's definitely stuff we could trade for sure. And then there's veterans too if we wanted veterans, but I don't want any veterans. Olsen. What else we got here? Jack Roslovic is still an RFA. Interesting. I mean, Jack Roslovic is relatively young, so he's not terrible if we wanted to ever trade for him, but I don't know if we want to do that. Edmonton has some prospects, Lavoie, Borgo, Tulio, Samukharov still. Yeah, there's actually a good amount of rookies and stuff, or younger guys that we could trade for. Madden as well. In terms of Montreal, they have veterans, but they also have some prospects, Yolonen, Mizak, and pretty much that. Yeah, there's some good assets out there for sure that we could trade for. A lot of these younger guys, we could end up just playing them for a few years and then eventually trading them away as well, but I don't know. Dawson Mercer, Zach Dean, Alexander Holtz. Yeah, there is some good stuff. We're definitely going to make some decent trades, I think, in next episode for sure. But I don't know if we're going to have the value to get a lot of these good prospects like Connor McLennan, for example. But yeah, there's definitely stuff we can go after. As opposed to last year, I don't think there was as much. St. Louis. PK Subban's in St. Louis now, huh? I guess there was a trade earlier in the season. Kajovic is still in the block. Same with Arvid Kostmar, who I believe was a Vancouver pick, right? Yeah, I guess he got dealt in this. Interesting. Abramov, Matchak, I don't even pronounce some of these names. Niemela. Maxim Susko is now in Vancouver. Interesting. Mason Primo still on the block. Dinel Chaka. Korzak's still there. But Korzak's probably not going to pan out, I don't think. He's 22 and 69 overall. Washington has some players as well. Gavin Bjorklund. And Winnipeg has Nikanen. Yeah. And Gustafsson. Yeah, so there's definitely some younger guys we could trade for if we want to trade for somebody in next episode, which more than likely we would want to. Final thing, let's take a look at how our prospects have been doing overseas, because we do got a lot of Russian prospects I'm kind of curious on. So let's start off with our center prospects. So Connor Geeky's up to a 71, so I think he jumped up an overall point. And currently in Winnipeg, he's got 60 points in 49 games, so he's been playing pretty good. He's probably going to get signed at some point soon. We also have Eugene Howe, who is over there in HC Olomouc, who's got 9 points in 36 games, improving on his first season over there in Extraliga. We also got Maximus Alberts, who's got 22 points through 46 games. Not too bad. We also got Arnsby, medium top 9, playing pretty good in the OHL right now. Semenov, 59 overall. He's only got 1 assist in 32 games and 28 penalty minutes. Might be more of a physical guy. Landry, top 6, doesn't matter. Varlamov is still at 69 overall. This is the guy that we drafted in the second round, who we could have played in the AHL this year, but I didn't end up doing that. He's got 13 points in Russia, though, so far in 38 games, so that's pretty solid. Hopefully he continues to get some development. Shelley's up to a 73 overall. I believe he jumped up, if I'm not mistaken. And so far in the United States, he's got 34 points in 45 games. Looks like he's going to have a worse season than he did in his first year, but yeah, his shooting category is absolutely insane. Like, I don't know if it was this good when we drafted him, but his power is up to a 98. His accuracy is a 96. Like, we put this guy next to somebody that's a good playmaker. This guy's going to score me like 40, 50 goals easily, I think. Even though he does have bad offensive awareness for some reason. Oh, I didn't want to quit that, goddammit. But yeah, I think Shelley's going to be a really good player. We're definitely going to be signing him probably in the offseason because he is AHL ready. And if we play him in the AHL next year, he could definitely get a lot of good development and be with this team by probably 2024, 25, I would assume. Sadikov, so far 16 points, not too bad. He was another first rounder. Denisov, 9 points, not too bad. Mayorov, 12 points, and Karpakari wasn't one of our picks, but the AI drafted him. I don't know, he was one of our picks. Yeah, 7th round pick. At 52 at 19 isn't terrible, but he's probably not going to pan out. And in defensive prospects, there is Zane Sylvester, Emil Martinson Lilleberg, which I believe is an actual Arizona pick, and Terrell Kristanovich. And goalie prospects, Koronin is currently not playing that great over there in Assat. Let me take a look at the progress reports just to see if we are getting some development from those guys. I believe Shelly and Geeky are the only ones getting a lot of development probably in the system. Yeah, Shelly's getting a lot of development. He does have an X Factor now, I think. I don't know if he did earlier. I should actually check that out again. But yeah, he's getting good development. Liam Kirk's getting some development. Yeah, it looks like we're getting some good development throughout our entire system, which is nice. Some of these guys are just staying the same overall, which is kind of questionable. But hopefully once they come to the AHL, they're better. Like, for example, Howe hasn't got any development at all, but he has medium top 6 potential, so hopefully he starts to get some development. Alberts hasn't developed at all so far, either has Varlamov. So yeah, hopefully those guys start to grow a little bit. No goalie development either, so we definitely need a goalie prospect if we can, because Prosvetov might end up just staying as a 77. Let me just quickly check though if Shelly's X Factor, because I don't know if he developed that X Factor or we drafted him with an X Factor or not. Oh, it doesn't even say X Factor on this part, but it says X Factor on the other screen, which is interesting. I guess we'll find out when he gets to the NHL and whatnot, or the AHL. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Arizona Coyotes franchise mode. So in next episode, we will take it to the trade deadline. We'll make a few trades and bring in maybe some more prospects or picks. We might have to take back some salary, though, because of our cap situation. And then we'll simulate the rest of year number 2. And yeah, hopefully this team falls apart. And hopefully we can get a good pick in this year's draft, because we definitely could use a good top prospect like Bedard or Michkov. So let me know what you guys think down below. And I'll see you guys next time.